Facebook año. 1. Wind slowly rustling leaves. Beauty. 2. We often forget that beauty can be found in simplicity. 3. The ruler we see every day but fail to acknowledge. Will we able to change this norm? Will we take a chance to do it? Difficult questions to ponder, a change that'll require millions. 4. We all want change at the moment like an ATM, but we fail to remember time and what it needs to do in order to achieve the goal. 5. There must be a yin and a yang for everything, but somehow power never meets that equation. 6. Love, communication, understanding. Some of the basic necessities in order for relationships to flourish. 7. So many new forms of art, media, and culture enter our own, and that's good, but we must never let our ombligo, our traditions, perish. 8. In the midst of so much chaos, there still blooms a small flower that brings beauty to a fractured world. 9. Where's order in a world where those who keep it constantly break it? 10. Destruction. Part of what I strive for. Learn all the basics, then destroy the art form with something different, challenging, experimental. Razón por la que me ves por ahí mezclando juegos y otros medios con la belleza poética. Will I succeed? I don't know, but I won't know if I don't try. 11. Spray the abandoned building with poetry in the form of graffiti and give life to what once died. 12. An art form inspires another, and that other inspires another, and another, and another. Sometimes one even seeks to kill the other. Circle of life type of thing. 13. Though they may not see it now, I'm sure they'll find a brighter future when they come of age. 14. It's so essential and we express it in so many ways, but the listening and understanding parts of the equation are often lost. 15. A little companionship, a little love, is all that's needed to change minds and intentions. 16. I look at the environment and the current situation of some of my pupils, and I just wonder if my little grain of sand will be enough for their salvation. They face so much every day it almost feels hopeless, but I march on and try to do my best for the kids. 17. So many people just wish to be back on a large convention, any type, be it Comic-Con or something academic. They're just tired of wearing masks and having to stay away from others. Sometimes it feels like this nightmare will never end. 18. They criticize the rebellion because they fail to understand the reason why it's happening. It goes to show that nuestra gente need education. 19. The island continues to fall to the danger zone, and nuestra gente continue to fall into the abyss of others' capitalistic ventures. 20. Ignorance has brought us here, but slowly the newer generations might bring forth a much-needed change. 21. In the darkness of Hangeo nights, lit only by neon lights, the smell of smoke, alcohol, sweat, and future sex serve as an expression of stress-fueled youth escaping a difficult reality. 22. Even in the darkest days, a little bit of light can be found. It's all a matter of what can we do with it that determines our next steps. 23. Every second that passes is one step closer to death, so why not use those little grains of sand to our advantage and do as much as we can before our clock runs out. 24. A little island in the middle of the Caribbean exploited for hundreds of years. A tragedy. 25. We desire so much and give back so little. This has contributed to our worldwide problem as we continue to devalue what we already have as we chase for more, 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 more. 26. After working a 9 to 5, I can totally understand why people just want to get home and escape. Heck, sometimes I escape the minute I walk out the gate. Sometimes I escape during work because I do my shit fast and got time to kill. So I just write poems and stories and keep adding worlds to my universe and keep adding to my legacy. 27. People slowly see it, empires causing destruction like Shinra did the world. I guess the people are learning from history, poco a poco. 28. Belleza es lo que veo cuando te veo, triste que te maltraten y no te valoren apropiadamente. 29. We often fail to live certain experiences because we're afraid of disillusionment, so we spoil ourselves watching and reading about an artistic endeavor before giving it a chance. 30. We continue to follow our dreams, yes, those dreams we've had since youth. Some might look at us crazy, like they did back in the day, but hey, this is the revenge of the dreamers like Dreamville, and we're getting out our dreams like Ye and the rest. 31. Are people suffering from culture shock due to displacement, forced by the powers that be, who are unwilling to work to bring forth opportunities? 32. Many acts of empowerment are taking place, but let's never blind ourselves with too much of it. The saying is, there for a reason, too much of a good thing can also be a bad thing. 33. We try to escape the busyness of our daily lives through massive amounts of consumption, but at the end of the day, we all end up in emptiness. 34. My love for this, my love for that, my love for them, my love for you, it'll only die when I cease to breathe. 35. So much trouble in the world, acts of evil that never meet justice. Time shows signs of change for the good and bad, and it feels like we'll never catch up to fully heal that which is full of hatred and sin. 36. We act like it doesn't exist, but we see it often in microforms that still affect those who've had to endure to pain just because of the way they were born. 37. These words might not seem like a lot, but they help me heal in times of darkness. It's an elixir that gives me back my HP. If I were a doctor, I'd prescribe you this art form as well, but I'm not a doctor, so I'll leave it up to you to try it out if you wish. 38. Adapting to you has brought forth a mixed bag of emotions that has been even more difficult to grasp on a day-by-day basis. I've tried to fully understand you, but I've often failed. I hope I can confront you sooner rather than later, so I can fully adapt to your difficult ways. 39. It's not easy seeing you, because every time I see you, I just cry, and crying can be a difficult display in public, because you feel bad for yourself, and others might look at you funny, or they might feel uncomfortable, because they probably wouldn't understand it, because everybody has different reactions to beauty, and shedding tears is probably not a common one. 40. Faith has been lost by my generation. They lost faith in religion and faith in the traditional politicians, but they gained faith in an unlikely source in the form of astrology. Everybody needs to find faith, hope, and comfort in something. I guess this is my generation's. 41. Plant a seed of doubt, and many will start to question, some more than others, more extreme than others, and that can corrupt an entire people. 42. Wish I could see you more often, wish I could share with you more often, but this life hasn't made it possible. I wonder if others will allow it. 43. Many feel like their careers are a part of fate. Lately, I felt the same, because it's been harder than ever to truly find a way to survive off the one thing I feel is my calling. 44. So much advocacy for free will, but we fail to practice it more often because we've tied to a system where survival has become the normal number one instead of love and happiness. 45. Dear failure, we fear you so often that we fail to act upon the things that call us, bringing sadness and depression along the way. 46. So many fears to face as children, teens, young adults, and elders. Life just gives us one challenge after another, till we become another part of the dirt or the wind that surrounds us. 47. I'm glad all of you challenge these every day, 'cause I'm sure one day, if I have a little girl, she too will want to do whatever the fuck she wants instead of staying attached to stereotypes. 48. Constantly working for a sense of fulfillment, pero la cosa se pone difícil cada día que pasa, 'cause life gets shorter and the boss monsters keep coming, pero seguimos en la lucha looking for a bit of joy in the midst of a stress-filled life. 49. Looking for a bit of good in everything can sometimes be a bad thing, as we just make bullshit acceptable. 50. A lot of bad news on TV, a lot of bad news on the papers, a lot of bad news on the web. We see so much of it, we forget there could be some good or love found out there. 51. Money rains from the sky as cigar-smoking pigs laugh at the ones building pyramids. 52. We seek to find the root of our downfall, but there is really not one root, rather many, that we need to work on as we slowly recuperate. 53. So much pain shared across the web in so many forms that we fail to understand it because the root of it all is difficult to find from one person to the next. 54. We find pleasure in others' misfortunes. We find pain in others' misfortunes. It's a weird dynamic that continues to contribute to the weirdness of human nature. 55. Every generation seems to grow up faster, but at the same time slower. Their eyes are more open than ever, and they find new ways to make money, but at the same time, it's still hard for them to leave their parents' home. 56. Now more than ever, we question our judgment as new ideas are presented every day, and we try to reflect on them before taking action. It's a sign of change. Good? Bad? Deja que pase el tiempo y luego chequeamos. 57. Songs of heartbreak and the amount of plays they receive might tell us a little bit about the entirety of the history of humanity. 58. Selling promises every 4 years and we trust them, but we never see them go through endless betrayal. 59. Acts of heroism done every single day, but they're never put out there for everyone to see because they don't get clicks. Sad state of the world. 60. We often look at our current hierarchy and we know there should be a change, and we try to bring said change, but every 4 years we take a few steps back. 61. I miss you, buddy. I wish we could spend more time together, buddy. But that's difficult to do these days, buddy. I'm surrounded by concrete, buddy. But I try my best to see you every day, buddy, so I can say hi to you, buddy. Don't worry, buddy. I'll protect you. I'll always try my best to do so. 62. I look at a Facebook post, someone's sharing their identity struggle and they're only in their late 20s. It's been a wild journey for this person, from woman to man to woman again. I guess it's a different form of the double consciousness struggle. Looking at it in the form of art can be kinda romanticized. But looking at it in raw form, in the form of Facebook post, can be a difficult experience. Maybe even more powerful than a poem. 63. Sigue pasando el tiempo y se ve más difícil el arreglar esta crisis que ha sido pasada de generación en generación. 64. Wanna see an illusion? Look at the portrait of every Boricua politician across history. 65. In the past, many egos were fueled to the max as statues celebrated lives. Now, that immortality is slowly being torn down. 66. Look at the most big budget media and you'll find a lot of loss in artistic individuality. 67. We live in a society, that's kind of cringy. But we really do. We live in a society, literally a complex one that we can't really define with one word. We just gotta do our best to work in it and change it for the better. 68. In these weird times, our inner strength is often challenged. I wouldn't blame you if you cried. I wouldn't blame you if you tempted the afterlife. The world is in a better time than it's ever been, but it's still a difficult one to navigate through. 69. Need to work on my outer strength, maybe not get stronger, but certainly healthier, if I really wish to live past the age of 59. 70. A community living in subhuman conditions will never make a change unless others bring a little help and dialogue and action intertwine to shape a potential better future. 71. Centuries of injustice boil up a pan till an explosive reaction brings forth a fire that'll take even more centuries to put out. 72. Despite the isolation, we still find ways to communicate with each other, and if there weren't, we would make them, because we need that display of love in order to function. 73. So many talk of big knowledge but don't know how to use it properly, which just goes to show if they're really knowledgeable at all. 74. Wanna see ignorance? Take a look at how la gente siempre caen por la misma trampa every 4 years. 75. In times of extreme enclosure, loneliness is felt much more, even if we have people around us, physically or digitally. 76. Arguments, fights, verbal and physical destruction of what once seemed like an interesting relationship. 77. Healthcare sadly helps only the people in the elite. 78. Loss of innocence covers these streets as kids continuously have to become adults from generation to generation. 79. Honor is lost as money comes into play and anything is fair game. 80. What seemed like love suddenly comes crumbling down as a chance at millions is put on the table. 81. How much would you be willing to sacrifice in order to keep the one as a part of your life? 82. We believe ourselves to be the top tier living being, but we constantly act like monsters. 83. It would be really nice right now if I could just sit on the beach and enjoy the breeze without a single care in the world, but ese sense of peace has also been lost. 84. All forms of manipulation used by all forms of people showing their forms of power across the social ladder. 85. Often trying to be minimalistic and essentialist, but the materialism within me continues to ruin the process. 86. With every day that passes, I continue to understand the difficulties of motherhood, which makes me question, when will it be ideal for me to try to be a parent? 87. There's power in names, there's pride in names. I look at my own and I find both in its entirety, as the family magic starts with something as simple as that. 88. El nacionalismo nos une en los deportes, las artes y otros medios, pero en la política la cosa se invierte por completo. 89. One step on the sand and toes wiggle as the wind breezes through my hair and the sun shines on us all. 90. Crazy how we can find beauty in everything, even behind the madness, like how certain individuals can fall in love and admire the most chaotic of men. 91. Generations of indie and alternative artists fail to live off their work, so they must do their 9 to 5 shit in order to survive and express themselves. 92. Decades of oppression leave un pueblo with a bit of Stockholm Syndrome. 93. Look at the various sides of the online generations and you'll find extreme optimism and very little of it, as the future seems uncertain from various sides. 94. Change. It can inject people with fear, a reason why anger and hate can take over human beings. 95. Fear is often seen as a weakness despite how human it makes us. 96. Man frequently falls to vices in order to cope with the darkness that falls over their inner and outer self. 97. Overcoming struggle can be a great thing, can be a beautiful thing, but never forget to thank all those who helped along the way. 98. Patriotism can be a double-edged as it brings love, but can also blind us to our own misdoings. 99. Dynamic power structures govern the current social media landscape as struggles are often manipulated for social points. 100. Corruption always makes its way through any cause for the greater good is created. 101. Some say silence can be a form of violence, but it's often meant as a form of listening before contributing. 102. Tradition continues to evolve as each generation brings their own with its own unique differences that'll contribute to change and shift the way culture moves along. 103. Generational wealth, a goal of many across the Americas so their family can have a better future even when everything seems uncertain. 104. Words can't explain the pain you must be going through right now, but I hope they help on the healing process. 105. Despite the continuous chaos, we are extremely proud of this beautiful island and the culture it presents. There's something about it that we can't explain, an endless love for it that we can't explain. It is an interesting feeling, an interesting experience that we can't help but try to explain whenever we are asked about it. 106. Civilization's downfall seems to be getting closer by the minute, and it often feels like we're doing very little to stop it. 107. Certain actions are taken as acts of progress, but sometimes I think there could be other ways. Do all those statues need to go down? Most likely yes, but why not just put them away in museum storages? Regardless of the dark backgrounds they represent, they're still part of history. History which we must reflect upon in order to never fall prey again. Prey to colonizers who just want to make their pockets larger. This was bound to happen de todas maneras. There's only so much a people can take before the bubble pops, and drastic measures are taken against those with powers. But I just hope we don't regret this, or forget the history which got us here in the first place, especially in these times where fake news are spread, and history seems to want to be rewritten every single day. 108. Separating time for the process is an essential for the artist, or else the end of the day might seem a little gloomy. 109. Is this even poetry anymore? Splashing words onto the canvas with no real rhyme or reason? Who really knows what poetry is anymore? According to the mainstream, it's all content. There's no room for artists to exist. Everything will eventually just be deemed content. 110. The muses are instantly killed when the 9 to 5 calls me back. 111. Art is undervalued these days. No longer can artists live off it comfortably. Nope. They need to wear more hats than ever if they truly wish to succeed in a world that sees their work as otro más del montón. 112. Music filters through their brains and they can never rest till they put it to the test and finish with a product they can call a baby. 113. The cinematic enters the mind every time I want to put a word out there because images have always been the starting point of this creative mind. 114. You are constantly changing not only yourself but the way you affect the world. We're all to blame / credit for your impact. We just fail to acknowledge more often. 115. What will the next discovery be? Will it truly blow our minds, or will it be just another thing because we've been accustomed to fantasy, sci-fi, and horror governing our screens? What will the next discovery be? What will it be? Can you see it? Because I can't. 116. Boots start shaking endlessly as power continues to be challenged year after year. 117. Every drive to the 9 to 5 feels like a quest as traffic feels longer and longer with each day that passes, and my wanting to go there wanes down with each second. 118. Not too long ago we discussed the possibility of rebirth, and I think it was the first philosophical conversation we had in quite some time. It was an interesting situation. You were pro, I was con. Your face kind of expressed disappointment for a while, but you were just acting, and we had a quick laugh afterwards. 119. I don't think I'll ever attend a high school reunion. It would just be too awkward, getting together with people I hardly ever knew every 5 or 10 years. I'm already close with those I really love because we connected immediately in college once again, or because we've maintained a connection after high school and college. What will be the point of a high school reunion? Play catch up? Remember the past? We could do that every now and then, on the web, and when we see each other around town. I don't know. Maybe this is harsh, but I don't see much of a point in it. 120. Monsters entertain each other, destroying land to build new surfaces made of concrete. 121. A new religion emerges from a small island in the Caribbean as a man calling himself after a rodent makes music that moves nations across the world. 122. Every single day when you visit your local newsfeed, you'll find hypocrisy on all sides, but that's just part of the human experience. 123. It's sad to know that they have to continue fighting to be treated equal, pero pues nada se arregla de un día para otro, especially a systemic issue. 124. My inner self needs a break from all the bullshit, pero the outer self and the outer life don't help. No hay cooperación, pero I guess que todo es con tiempo. Todo requiere trabajo y proceso para poder estar en paz con el inner self. 125. Outer self needs some help, pero I do little to help it, cause el inner self se está jodiendo. Pero por ahí vamos, poco a poco, buscando cumplir una meta que tengo desde chamaco para poder respetarme un poco más. 126. Self-awareness, a trait that's kind of been lost. Some learn at a very young age, but others simply lack a hint of it, and go on hurting others on a path of entitlement. 127. We practice so much self-preservation nowadays that we often forget how dangerous life can turn and pay no attention to being aware for ourselves and others, and we can't even fathom the horrors others across the globe have to live through, and sometimes we just spew nonsense on the web instead of listening. 128. School teaches us many things, but self-reliance is hardly ever tackled, which is why I try to help my students grow a bit of discipline every single day by creating a bit of a routine for certain days, which is why I try to introduce topics that will help them in the real world, like how to make a resume and how to work with their finances, and how to build a bit of focus when approaching their goals. This can be a challenge. After all, they're only teenagers, and at that age, many of them just want to have fun, and they care very little for adulthood. Pero seguimos tratando, poco a poco. 129. So much preach of self-love twists the minds of people who say they want to practice it, but upon further inspection really don't do it, as they let their vehicle, their piece of flesh, in a rotten form and do very little to get healthier in order to practice true self-love. 130. Little space is allowed for social mobility to take place in a world where the powerful will cut the heads off anyone new. 131. You help us, but we're addicted to you. It's an interesting 50-50 dynamic that most of us fail to control. 132. Nature displays its wrath as men continue to ruin their chances at a potential future. 133. One person's ugly is another's beauty, como el clásico dicho, pero with a bit of a twist para que te pongas a pensar en physical appearances and how little they can matter in the bigger spectrum. 134. Let them not fall under temptation, I tell myself every day as I reflect on my students and their infinite potential. 135. All forms of destruction will continue as we continue to sink in the Caribbean Titanic known as Boriken. 136. His vanity and extreme focus on appearance is leading to his downfall, but he fails to see it. Hopefully, time will show him the other elements he needs to move forward. 137. Sloth will be the sin to defeat all those who have a dream. 138. Nobody's perfect, but it is loss of virtue that has brought our island to where it is. Where will we go from here as our leaders just keep fucking up because they want to fill their pockets with plata? 139. Our downfall? There are many reasons, but the lack of communication is certainly at the top. 140. Vulnerability is often expressed in these internet feeds. It takes a lot of courage to do so, or does it? 141. Sad to see how war never ends. When it isn't with international siblings, it is with local ones with whom we have differences. It's a sad, sad thing about the human experience. 142. Many act like they're pieces of glory, but they do very little to earn the title. 143. I try to help them with what is today a necessity in order to communicate with people across the world, but they pay little attention or simply don't care. A teacher's words while expressing part of her frustrations. 144. Life's full of pain. We just gotta learn how to deal with it. It'll never be easy. Some forms of it are more difficult than others, but we gotta try to find ways in order to keep going. Me? I use art. You might use something else, but hopefully you'll never hurt others when you're in pain. 145. Sad to see. Hope our beautiful little island turns into a comedy and tragedy with each passing week, pero como quiera la apreciamos por tanto que nos da. 146. Resisting the will to post, comment, reply, share something random online is a beautiful trait. Ironic how I go against this very idea by distributing this poem. 147. If we've forgotten something due to our vast amount of time being stuck in our houses glued to the phone and or computer is our survival instinct. I too am guilty of this, but then again, I've always had a pretty nerfed up life. Sure, Maria was a big challenge, but even then I was the third person in charge. I was merely learning. I don't know how I truly might act when shit hits the fan. 148. We preach to have wisdom and constantly scream at others on the web, but we forget that staying quiet and listening are parts of being wise. 149. No matter how much experience you gather, there will always be space for more. 150. Constantly working to get better at my craft, constantly working to get better at different crafts, constantly working to survive off my craft, constantly working to leave a legacy off my craft. 151. Take a look at my day-to-day and you'll see classes with divisional classes as the students, often coming from poor backgrounds, are being taught by teachers who come from the middle, An interesting dynamic, one that can be seen all across the world. Sometimes the scenario is a complete 180, but this is just a picture of classes. 152. Most only see the end product, few see the struggle from the creation to the 95 days. Ahora se ve más un poco de eso, pero jamás se compara la verdad. Horas dándole duro a esto, más el 9 to 5, más el time perdido con family and friends. Eso nunca se ve. Solo se ven el end product y luego salen las opiniones incompletas. I feel for my fellow artists, especially those demonized after a work of art. But that's part of the fast food culture we live in. Art is no longer processed properly. People take it and fart away opinions that haven't been thought out. Y ni decir aquellos who simply jump on a bandwagon without having even consumed the art. It's a weird time, pero con eso hay que lidiar. 153. The youth is divided. Those who are hopeful, those who can't see a future. I wasn't exposed to so much info per second, but I can imagine their brains aren't wired for it, and they're just confused at how their tomorrow might look. 154. Beauty found everywhere, but we don't have time to see it and embrace it, as the life in La Metro makes it difficult to simply relax and enjoy the little things. 155. Abuse all across time, and we've learned nothing as we continue to make the same mistakes. Maybe it's the longest worldwide experience, an extremely long case of Stockholm Syndrome. 156. No matter how much time passes, power and ego will always be at the forefront of war, accompanied by other interests. It's sad that we still do this, but it's inevitable. These are human traits that can't be distinguished. 157. Arrogance can lead us to many paths, good, bad, neutral, but often you'll see how humility is substituted by arrogance when a certain status is reached. 158. Art has had many evolutions across time, but never did the Greeks and Romans imagine what it is today, and how we treat it as otra cosa más del endless world of consumerism, where artists are forced to become business people and possibly scammers in order to survive off their shit. But hey, I guess this was eventually going to happen. After all, art has always had a price on its head. 159. We fear giving them autonomy because we fear they'll make mistakes they'll later regret. But we forget that we learn from mistakes, and we've slowly taken away that little space for them to make mistakes and learn about life's little deeds. 160. Despite the poverty, despite the crime, despite the hunger, despite the homelessness, the kids still manage to be kids and not lose their innocence. 161. Se trata de display la belleza física cada mañana, pero el 9 to 5 se la lleva al final de cada día. 162. Our beliefs are constantly questioned in a life, in a society, in a world that's never perfect, always changing, a good challenge to always face as long as we keep an open line of communication. 163. We often feel betrayed, and sometimes it's because of the dumbest shit. Maybe we need to reflect a little bit more before coming to conclusions, or else we'll stay as ignorant as ever. 164. Many preach your words but don't really practice them. Most do it for financial gain, but that's just part of the human experience. Inside of you, it says that God just created us, and we would be extremely flawed. So it's not weird to see hypocrisy and greed being parts of our biggest traits. 165. A young white girl stands between her black friend and an armed line of cops. An image of bravery we've seen very few times in the media. 166. A young man swinging around like a spider becomes a celebratory closure for an otherwise destructive year. 167. What chance did the Politos have when everything seems so bleak. 168. Technology has brought many changes, but will it ever turn into the apocalypse future displayed in movies and books? Or will we learn from those and learn our limits? Things seem uncertain, but we'll eventually find out. 169. Live in the web for quite some time, and eventually your mind will turn into a chaotic game of Scrabble where ideas of all kinds will bounce around like the longest game of tennis you'll ever find. 170. Order will continue to be lost if our leaders continue to lie for their own interests. 171. I often wonder about them and question their future. Maybe I'm an old man in a young body. But every time I think about my sobrinitos and primitos, I can't help but think that their future is rough. 172. Life throws rocks way too often, but we still go through it, learning, growing, evolving individually, never as a collective, or at least it takes much more time. 173. The kids come of age en momentos inesperados por las situaciones exteriores en sus alrededores, llenos de violencia, drogas y otras influencias del mal. 174. Common sense is often lost when emotion overpowers us. 175. Conversations are lost when emotions overpower us. 176. It's a weird time to be alive, a time where conspiracies have become more believable than actual facts, because our news sources have become a fucked up melcocho of agendas and ads when the only thing they should have done in the first place was inform. It's a weird time to be alive. It's a weird time to be alive. 177. The process of creation is one we should always cherish, one we should always keep close and practice, for it's a healing process, one that can benefit all of us in our sharpest or darkest moments. 178. Crime continues to rise as desperation eats up a country that was once known for happiness. 179. Sometimes the smallest acts are acts of courage in these weird times of chaos. 180. All these words will eventually be found in the darkness when you least expect it, helping you in ways you'd never imagine. 181. A single light brightens the entire apartment as the poet takes advantage of the night to express everything that fogged the mind across the week. 182. Not too long ago it was reminded of death as thoughts of you came back into my mind. At first the good memories came in, but then came the last image of you. I miss you, we all do. I start crying as I write this. I start laughing too, 'cause in the end, you would have loved to see us laugh, just like you made everyone laugh, with your endless love and laughs. 183. Constantly wondering about dedication and how that era of mixtapes has been lost in the streaming era due to right claims. Hopefully they'll come back, and new generations will have the chance to give them a listen, so they too can get educated on a significant moment in time where hip-hop was slowly reaching the top charts. 184. You think we'd all strength in a democracy, but often you'll find officials abusing their power. It's a natural thing. It's a human thing. Power goes to their heads and forget what they were elected to be. 185. A sense of desire overpowers their minds. I just hope it doesn't overpower them to the point of losing their lives, or at least their youths, in order to take care of even younger youths. 186. We look for many ways to escape our grim reality through fantastic worlds spread across arts, entertainment, and media, but then we look at those and find reflections of our reality. Y entonces, ¿qué podemos hacer? 187. Cries of despair are heard around the world as threats of another war continue to plague the minds of people. 188. Disillusionment, a feeling we try to avoid because we don't trust our skills in their entirety. 189. With a single order, we see how the economy goes to the shitter. It's all a result of ego. 190. Effects of the past suddenly invade our present as political egos clash and seek to destroy the homes of the innocent. 191. Empowerment is one of the key words these days, but sometimes fiends use them to fuck up movements or the lives of those they prey on anonymously. 192. Beautiful to see how our love continues to be persistent and, one could argue, grows stronger in these trying times. 193. Evil takes many forms, but every 4 years it shows its consistency. 194. Sad how we can forget our humanity in the typing of a keyboard. 195. Reality changes a little bit faster than before. I guess that's part of the power of the internet. Things move at a higher speed here, like taking a star in Mario Kart. So in the physical world, things speed up a bit, like taking a mushroom in Mario Kart. 196. Failure to communicate, failure to understand, and many more failures continue to ruin our present. 197. Their families are barely there, so they do what they can by themselves. This is one of the hardships I see them face daily. 198. Some would say that their fates are sealed, but here we all are, trying to help them find avenues outside the struggle. 199. The fear of the unknown reigns upon us every 4 years, even though we almost always know that there won't be any changes. 200. Sad how certain words can suddenly be changed into negatives due to the extreme actions of power-hungry people. 201. In the endless search for freedom, we sometimes meet some of the hardest challenges we'll ever face in this little piece of land we call Earth. 202. It's beautiful to see how technology and the web can allow us to sustain so many friendships. It's also sad to see how many use these to destroy lifelong displays of love. 203. The future continuously looks uncertain. I can't imagine what the pollitos must think now that they got so much info at the tip of their fingers. It's no wonder why they're so depressed, so stressed, so anxious. They must go through an existential crisis on a weekly basis. 204. For years they struggled to be heard, but they continue to be silenced. Sadly, due to this silencing, some take it to the extremes. Pero son cosas que pasan cuando se habla mucho y se escucha poco. Hopefully, nada muy grande se va a afectar por ideas extremas de todas partes y que todos puedan tener el respeto y humanidad que todo el mundo se merece. 205. God is good, God is great. Phrases, sentences we hear often but then question when we look at so much tragedy around the world. 206. So much good goes unnoticed. How great would it be if we could have more good on our news feeds and less evil acts ruining our hope for a better future? 207. As we constantly question good and evil, we often find ourselves seeing more evil than good, creating a perception full of anger and fear as an unhealthy relationship that's tough to escape. 208. Many go into government full of good in their hearts, but there's something in there that changes them into corrupt souls. Who knows? Maybe they really had good intentions, or maybe they were always wearing masks. Bottom line, the people continued to be disappointed, and the suffering goes on. 209. Greed will forever hold us back from achieving our fullest potential. 210. Por más que intentemos, jamás se podrá demostrar cómo crecer. We can merely provide some direction, pero el futuro siempre trae sus cambios inesperados. 211. We search for happiness in so many ways to the point that we forget that sometimes it's the little things that can do it for us. 212. Hate is spread all over the web. Some might say it's horrible to see. Heck, I thought that once. But now I'd rather see it there than it take form in a violent physical way. 213. Every day it feels like we lose our heritage more and more, but upon further analysis it's just being transformed into new and different forms while keeping the essence. 214. We explore cultures with each piece of food we consume. No nos damos cuenta, pero si comemos con calma disfrutaremos esa experiencia. 215. Acts of heroism often go unnoticed because all forms of media are too focused on the dreads of the world and the exploitation of others. 216. I wouldn't blame you for wondering just how much of what we see on social media is real and how much of it is just performance art. So many try to display a dream life, but in reality it's a fake life that serves as entertainment for many of us who just seek to escape from the dreads of the 9 to 5 and the bleakness of uncertain futures that it's hard to decipher what's what. 217. How can you expect 2 generations to have hope when the future seems so bleak? 218. In humor we can confide and think of so many things, but sadly time continues to show that some wish to silence it. 219. We say we're more advanced than ever, and indeed we are, but we'll always keep some animalistic ways. It's just human nature. 220. Artist versus academic, an identity smash battle that has always stayed, and things get even more difficult when a new challenger, the documentarian, comes into the fray, making the balance of time much more difficult. 221. We say ideologies drive our actions, but if the web is any indicator, I'd say emotions have a 60% advantage on that. 222. They say ignorance is bliss, but a bit of ignorance can be a good thing, as it sometimes brings individual peace and other times makes life much more exciting, as we can learn so much more about it and everything it offers. 223. Wanna see an illusion? Follow any album promos by Ye and see if he actually releases the project on time. 224. In continuous fights for power, the souls of good people are often corrupted. 225. As we aspire for more community across the web, in the physical world we continue practicing our individuality more than ever. Hopefully our pandemic fears will soon lift and that sense of community can be recovered. 226. In the constant search for inner peace, we forget that some of the greatest tools are right in front of us in the form of a pen and notebook or cell phone notes, or simply expressing our problems vocally even when no one's listening. 227. Innocence has been lost in the streets, physical and digital. It feels like kids can't be kids anymore, or maybe that's just me, looking at them as a 30-something, maybe it's a paternal instinct or algo así, pero yeah. There's so much chaos in the world and we give them access to all of it when we let them borrow our phones or when we give them phones at early ages. Does it give them a sense of responsibility because they need to care for it? Sure. Do we feel a bit more secure because we can call or text them to know if they're safe? Sure. But man, there's so much access to so many unforeseen worlds. I just hope we can find some happy medium so kids can be kids and teens can be teens. I don't know. Maybe that's the old man inside of me talking. 228. Hours of isolation have led to many acts, both good and bad. Por eso nunca viene mal un poco de contacto humano. 229. Jealousy, a silent killer of many internally and externally. Working on such an emotion can be an artist's thing, pero hay que hacerlo si no queremos que nos consuma. 230. Many seek justice over huge issues, but they're not heard. Entonces se preguntan por qué tanta pelea en estos días donde más voces se expresan abiertamente. 231. Kindness can get us far, pero un poco de malicia se debe demostrar para poder ganar ciertos awards, o por lo menos así nos hacen pensar. 232. I preach of having knowledge, a little humbleness would go well for me, as to not let ego get the best of me. 233. Sad to see how many hounds use the law as the way to have power over people who just want to survive. 234. Leadership? You mean the pigs who have continuously destroyed our island decade after decade based on false promises? That leadership? Well, I guess you can call them leaders if we compare them to others around the world who do the same. 235. Liberty? What could be written about it that hasn't been written before? There are many ways to find it. For me, it's through the arts, but for many, including myself, an even bigger sense of it would be through money. They say money doesn't bring happiness, but tell that to people who are barely surviving, barely bringing enough bread home, barely even have a home. And tell that to people like me who work a 9 to 5 that was supposed to be plan B, but suddenly became a plan A because the real plan A just doesn't help me survive in the current economic landscape unless luck enters the game. So, liberty? We all want freedom. The arts allow me a bit of freedom, but economic freedom would allow me and millions of others a lot more freedom. 236. Life will bring you many challenges. You just gotta think very well what you're gonna do when they smack you in the face. Advice to my younger self. 237. Logic goes out the door fast when emotion gets in the way and suddenly unnecessary arguments destroy friendships. 238. Politicians always sell hope. The question is, are you gonna fall for it again? 239. They've all lost their innocence in one way or another. We're just here trying to help them escape that. We're just here trying to help them survive that. Pero a veces es difícil escapar lo que siempre llevan consigo. 240. What is love? It's many things, but part of it includes waking up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning to go do laundry with your loved one in order to enjoy the rest of the Sunday afternoon. 241. We often see success on our screens, but we fail to see the sacrifice it took for those people to reach the level of green they carry in their genes. 242. Heartbreak. A feeling they've probably never experienced but have definitely seen and heard of often. A feeling that no matter how much they've lived through arts, media, and entertainment will always hurt when it happens. 243. So many ask for loyalty, 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 like that K-Dot song. The question then becomes, will they too be as loyal as they wish others would be when temptation runs free? Loyalty, 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 loyalty. 244. The theme of man versus man is the most explored in the field of literature, as people constantly fight over little things that don't affect them and the big things that actually do. 245. A few more years and that's what life will be, an endless battle of man versus nature. 246. A battle that seemed like another form of the apocalypse. Nowadays, it seems we're just destined to be partners. What will the future bring between man and tech? That's something we'll have to wait to find out. 247. Man versus self, a clash seen often all across time and now more than ever as people seek it online como si nada, just because they want a little bit of excitement in their mundane lives. 248. Will mankind last when climate change brings us a form of the apocalypse, or will we go to our savage selves only watching for ourselves? Humanity or savagery? What will be left? 249. All sense of maturity can be lost in seconds when a meme just strikes the right funny bone in our bodies. 250. Poesía es medicina, pero es triste que tantos le tengan miedo a probarla. 251. They plead for mercy cuando el pueblo los tiene de rodillas y como pendejos le dimos breaks por mucho tiempo. Recently eso ha ido cambiando y poco a poco los estamos votando. 242. Whatever sense of morality is often left at the door when emotions take over on social media newsfeeds as people write away and act away through emotions rather than thought. It is a very human reaction, but one that can lead us to the abyss. 253. Our sense of nationalism can often blind us from our history's horrors. 254. One brief moment with nature can bring us the sense of peace we've always longed for. 255. Water, a necessity to our systems, but one we've put to the side for drinks that can ruin our systems. 256. Hope and optimism intertwine in the minds of a generation fighting to prosper. 257. Neglecting love will continue to drag us as a people. 258. Todo se vuelve norma, lo bueno, lo malo, lo in between, si se repite con frecuencia, o por lo menos eso dicen. So, ¿qué haremos en el proceso? 259. Opportunities vienen de vez en cuando, pero por miedo las dejamos ir, y ¿cómo no vamos a tener miedo cuando nos piden tener algo seguro en vez de algo risky? 260. Optimism, a beautiful trait to share, but one that can hang there if we don't actually work to better our future. 261. As they overcome the hardship from their surroundings, they suddenly feel fear as they approach a world they never even imagined. 262. Whenever your passion for your passion ceases, don't force it. Sit back, relax, give it some time, and it'll tell you when you need to go it back. 263. We learned patience across those Maria months, but all that learning is slowly forgotten in this metro living. 264. Patriotism can join us, but it can also ruin us when our definitions of it VA. 265. So many of us just want peace, but there's just too much work to be done before it could even come close to being achieved. 266. Dear Perfection, here's a message to you from the entire human race. You might be unachievable, but we'll never understand that till we face you. 267. I see you being practiced often in real life and the digital one. I try my best to learn before doing anything. I just hope the little advice I provide can help the little pollitos not fall under your weight. 268. Some might call me perseverant, but no, I just like challenges based on numbers. The real perseverant face life head on and gather whatever momentum they have to overcome its adversaries. 269. When we people gain power, they hunger for more. Just look at our politicians. 270. Corruption has brought us to this, so many years lost to it, so many years continue to be lost to it, y entonces, ¿pa' cuándo un cambio de verdad? A veces siente que eso nunca vendrá, pero con politicians como estos, ¿quién tiene fe anymore? 271. Sad to see how prejudice still runs in our race, but it's difficult to get rid of hate. 272. Our pride will take us down if we don't reflect a little sooner. 273. Poco a poco verás el progress de los kiddos en su world. 274. Constantly questioning my purpose and if all this will be done en vano, sin nada to show for it, pero seguimos porque aunque la pasión se va por un rato, de la nada vuelve con más energía. 275. Quests down rabbit holes of music can leave you ultra inspired. 276. Often racing with time, trying to catch up to that which I've lost due to my ignorance. 277. Reality will slap them across the face and they'll cry when they see that no one will hug them when they most need it. 278. Redemption? We often say it in fiction. Non-fiction barely allows it, even with regards to simple mistakes. 279. Regrets. Everybody has them, some more than others. Do we forgive ourselves? Hardly ever. So, the thoughts linger. 280. Religion can make us do crazy things. Just look at history and take a peek. You'll see a bunch of people doing misdeeds all in the name of a deity they claim to see. 281. In the name of resistance, they gather celebrity stats, but later abuse that power to take out anybody they see fit, just 'cause they don't agree. This goes all ways, all sides. Abuse of power knows no bounds. 282. School reunions will be funny in the future when they do it through sim games. 283. We say we want a revolution, but for the most part we just stay on social media complaining, thinking that internet activism will open the doors we want, forgetting that field work is always essential. 284. Thoughts of revenge cloud the mind of a peaceful man in times of sorrow. 285. Sanity continues to be lost as we fail to create our own thoughts. 286. Through secrecy, you'll find many damaging lives for personal gain. 287. Despite the progress, we continue to practice segregation. 288. Self-awareness is being lost as we spend lots of time in bubbles. 289. Self-discipline was a factor I needed to develop faster. 290. In simplicity, one can find lots of beauty. Look deeper to see it. 291. Twisting, turning society is what is seen now as many movements wish to gain the spotlight. 292. Sad to see people killing each other every day over social constructs that still cloud the way we see each other. 293. In solitude, there's inspiration to be found, a different form that was displayed throughout COVID. 294. The soul craves healing, but we give each other small spaces to do so. 295. The numbers rise, but we still blame those who do it and don't talk seriously about the subject. 296. It feels like a matter of survival these days as peeps seek to stay. 297. You give us so much, you take away so much, 'cause we've grown addicted to you. 298. Temptation drives them to acts they'd never commit in wiser years. 299. The silent killer that's always there to remind you of its presence. 300. We've shown a lot of tolerance across the years. It is time to act. Sentences we tell ourselves but never really act upon because we're stuck to the keys. 301. Recently been traveling to worlds full of magic and fantasy mixed with machines as an incoming natural apocalypse is collapsed by a planet-clashing apocalypse, as a man finds what he believes are his origins and a group of misfits join to save the world from doom. 302. Trust has been thrown out. No longer do we believe in leaders who seek to enlarge their pockets through our labor. 303. Sad to see how peeps choose to hide truths to favor empires made from decades of exploitation. 304. A universe full of languages and wonder await a poet in the making who soon will be teleported like David from 2001. 305. It will forever plague us if we don't truly open our eyes and try to change the human way. Selfishness. 306. They've shown valor in many ways, but they're still children trying to understand the world around them. Hopefully, they still have some of that childhood wonder that keeps us young. 307. One look at these streets and you'll find many who've given their bodies to vices they've struggled to conquer, and sadly, leaders and loved ones fail to help them in any way possible. 308. When violence reigns, violence becomes the way to solve our problems. Justified? You be the judge. 309. Virtue is being lost, virtue is being gained as our time on social media continues to change the way we behave. 310. Culture wars extend our separation from each other in times where we should come together. 311. So much waste covers these streets and nature alike. What will be left for the pollitos? 312. Wealth comes in many ways, but we always seem to forget that which comes in the form of love. 313. We frequently think we're wise, but forget that we should keep quiet often. 314. Willpower can get us far, but work should always be a part of the equation. 315. Kids cheer as they win another game that'll determine their future if they play their cards right. 316. Losing can be a painful experience for those who never seek to learn something new. 317. Sad to see how you still cover these dashboards and damage many lives. Xenophobia. 318. They always determine what school, and I feel old trying to learn and stay relevant. Youth. You can change them for good and bad. It's all a matter of how peeps act. Adversity. 320. Wish I could say I'm aging gracefully, but I'm constantly reflecting on what ifs. 321. You deem yourself the land of freedom, but you need some reassessment. 322. In these streets, angels lose their wings to the devils who rule them with might. 323. Your actions show beauty, and all I can do is admire and learn. 324. They chirp and wake me in otra mañana de creativity. Birds. 325. Change will never come if the dogs stay by the side of the pigs with ties. 326. Childhood changes with the seasons as gens keep passing. 327. They travel outside of their comfort zone, viewing all forms of possibilities. 328. Death moves us in different ways, from tears to laughs, as we gather so many memories and emotions at once. 329. With a little bit of courage and a sense of community, we could achieve much more than we could ever imagine. 330. Sad to see deception hovering around our lives at every corner. 331. It feels like destiny is at their doorstep, but we try our best to help them escape that. 332. Why? The most frequent question she hears as her kid slowly grows older. 333. Depression ruins the days that should be their best, but it's all a part of life. 334. They follow their dreams, but the streets provide temptation in various forms. 335. Just when we feel like an art form is dying, a new gen revives it. It's a beautiful thing to witness. 336. We grasp the earth and feel its strength and fragility all in one. 337. Sad to see how teens bottle up their emotions because they're not allowed to cry. 338. As I encourage new gens to follow their dreams, I try to balance reality with fantasy, but I'll admit old school thoughts try to seize my own ideas. 339. In faith, some find a new life, some for good, others for bad, y otros para understand life in a different light. ¿Y tú, cómo la usarás? 340. He never wanted fame, he just got it after being killed by those who swore to protect us. 341. Whenever you feel like fate's at your door, challenge it to a duel and find a new path worth living for. 342. In the face of fear, spit it in the face and take a chance on that creative endeavor you've always wanted to bring into your life. 343. Today, have a bouquet of flowers from me to you in the form of words I call poetria. 344. They seek some forgiveness for mistakes made while young, but they are shunned to the shadow realm, never to return into society. Justified? For some, yes. For others, not so much. 345. Through music you'll find lots of freedom, so never be afraid to enjoy it, be it through dancing, mosh pitting, headbanging, air drumming, air guitaring, or whatever form you want to gain that freedom. 346. Without some form of friendship, humans would lose humanity. 347. Funerals are terrible processes, but necessary ones to start closure. 348. It stands there as a form of hope and listener whenever we need some healing. 349. Time flies, so before it fully flies, I'd like to give some flowers to those who've inspired me along the way. Gratitude. 350. Grief can turn to hate, and that hate can bring more grief, a vicious cycle that could be formed if our minds become clouded. But I'm not one to judge. I've never gone through that type of grief or that type of hate. I've been close to it, but never fully immersed. 351. I often miss happiness. Sure, she greets me every now and then, but I wish she'd be with me more often. Maybe on the daily, but it's hard for her. The world of capitalism has consumed me, and it's hard for her to get in when work is hammering my brain every fucking day. 352. Hovering, anger, told through expressions, and el ether. Hate. 353. So much heartbreak expressed across the web. Wish I could give them all a hug, at least one, para alegrarles el día o ponerles a pensar. 354. Music plays all around and angels dance de arriba a abajo, breakdancing como Jesús en el meme, creando nuevas pinturas para que nosotros nos inspiremos. 355. Is there even hope anymore? We're often told about the time we have left on this world due to climate events and virus-driven tragedies and leaders who don't show any signs of leadership. So, why would people hold on to hope anymore when there's very little to be found? 356. La humildad, alguito que hace falta más en un mundo donde todos quieren comer. 357. ¿Quién soy yo sino otro Facebook el más, usando la plataforma todos los días para dar likes y compartir y criticar la misma mientras sigo enriqueciendo a los millos que ya están set for life con cada letra que suelto en el metaverso? 358. Que la imaginación nunca se muera porque el día que desista muere el artista y si muere el artista la vida se pone aburrida. 359. Many things seem like an impossibility at first until we find ways to break them down and work on them poco a poco. 360. La asistencia se sigue perdiendo mientras los pollitos siguen siendo explotados. 361. As we endlessly search for inner peace, we continue to be invaded by others' problems as we allow ourselves to let our eyes get glued to the black mirror. 362. The inspiration can come from any source, like that RZA quote. Solo tienes que buscarla entre los cracks como lucre y dejar de quejarte cuando no te llega nada. Y si no te llega nada para un medio, practica otro hasta que encuentres tu llamado. 363. Jealousy, anger, madness, a deadly combination that's always existed, but one we see more often these days because we're always stuck to our phones reading the thoughts of random people we've never met. 364. Joy used as an act of resistance as oppressing governments continue to try and keep el pueblo triste sin esperanza. Pero la alegría reigns supreme in these streets, where the people and their music never allow dark influences ruin their fun and acts of resistance. 365. Years continue to pass y poco a poco se llega a la justicia que requiere un pueblo oprimido.